Girls, did you ever have a guy that you wished you said yes to when he asked you out? What is this story? Part 2. Story of my life. Ever since I was a child, my passion was to be a cinematographer. I grew up trying to learn as much as I could. I ended up going to a trade school for cinematography and worked hard to earn a top-tier spot in class. Post-graduation, I found immediate work, and I've been a freelance cinematographer working passionately for 2 years. Last month, I was recently hired full-time to be a cinematographer or editor at an awesome news company. And I'm so incredibly blessed and grateful that my dream has since become my reality. With that being said, I've always sort of been married to my passion or career. I'm a very outgoing person. I'm active, I longboard, I play pool, I drink whiskey, I play airbase at rock shows. I get a modest amount of attention from the opposite gender. The attention is flattering, but I never let it go anywhere. I meet guys at bars, but don't let them take me home. I put up a subconscious defense thinking for some reason that if I let a guy in, I won't be able to get to where I want to go. I met one of my best friends at the trade school for filmmakers. He was a cinematographer like myself, and we had an incredible amount in common. We ended up becoming fantastic partners in the freelance game, and together, filmed cinematic weddings, commercials, a few short narratives, and even a music video. I knew he had always been interested in me from the start. To say that I wasn't also interested would be a lie. I just needed to figure out if that was a possibility for me. About 3 months ago, I graduated college last June. I met him at the start of 2012. He finally asked me. I was so overwhelmed with emotion and felt trapped. It's not that I didn't expect it, I just wasn't ready. I did say no. He was very upset. We didn't talk for about 2 weeks. But then we both suggested that we meet up to talk over some pho. We had the mutual understanding that we should be in each other's lives, but I had to explain a part of me that is just ingrained in my soul. I don't think I can fairly give the amount of time a man deserves in a relationship. To meet them halfway right now would be too much, because I am so invested in my career. I would love a companion, but I'm simply not ready to give them what they need or want. I've thought about it almost every day, wondering if I just lost my soulmate. I'm grateful we're still friends, but there's definitely something different in the air around us. I do get saddened sometimes that this is who I am, but at the same time, I'm 24, I'm in love with my passion, and I'm so excited to be alive and learning and thriving. My time will hopefully come when it is meant to. I'm married to my passion and I have a girlfriend. It can work out. You both have the same passion. So you can work around each other's schedules and stuff. I don't know. It's just me. Story 2. A couple years ago, I worked as a cashier seasonally to get by because my husband was unemployed. Another of the cashiers was this devastatingly handsome guy. I nicknamed him Dark Legolas when talking about him to my friend because he was beautiful and had this dark mane of hair. He was kind to everyone. He would smile at me all the time and sometimes wink. He liked video games. I'm a huge gamer. And was pagan. So am I. In contrast, my home life sucked. My husband was inattentive, emotionally and verbally cruel. I had to call into work because he wouldn't watch our infant and toddler. I'd come home and they hadn't been changed or fed all day. It was an antidepressant, so his libido was gone and he hadn't so much as touched me in months. So basically, my marriage sucked. And here was a breathtakingly handsome guy who smiled at me. I did not emotionally cheat, but I did develop a crush. I knew it was inappropriate, so I kept my distance because I knew if we became friends, I would develop feelings. During my last month at the store, my mother-in-law offered to host my husband and kids for the week of my birthday. He could relax while she watched the kids, and I would have the house to myself for a week. I was talking in the break room at work about my awesome plans to watch Netflix and play video games all week. After the others had left, Legolas came over to me and invited himself over. I'm not the brightest bulb for social cues, but I fully got what he meant when he verified I would be alone and he said to keep you company and celebrate your birthday with a wink and a smile. No one would have known. The seasonal job was ending in a couple weeks and I wouldn't see my coworkers again. My husband would be out of town, my friends hated my husband and wouldn't care. I declined and then I left the job and Legolas extended friendship. I faded away. It didn't matter that I was miserable and mistreated and unsatisfied. I made vows and put on a ring and I'm not the kind of person to dishonor vows and promises. I'm a loyal, faithful person. It was the perfect temptation and I don't know if turning him down really makes me a better person. I'm still with my husband and he's still a horrible jerk to me. Sometimes when I feel really low and lonely, I regret saying no. I would have had something kind and fun to look back on. I'm sure in the long run being a good person was the better choice. Story 3. First year of college, I met this guy in English class. We were to exchange rough drafts of an essay with a classmate to read over and critique. The essays were about a personal experience that changed you in some way. I wrote about the passing of my grandfather, and he wrote about his experience in Afghanistan when an IED went off that injured him as well as others. His was very well written, and I don't remember finding any issues in his essay, so after he critiqued mine, we just started chatting until everyone else was done or professor told us to stop. We clicked quite well, and we chatted some more after class. Then in the next class, we continued talking before and after, and he asked for my number. I gave it to him and thought, wow, I really like this guy. I wonder if he likes me too. I was quite clueless as to guys hitting on me or being into me at the time in my life. That coming weekend, he invited me to trivia night with his friends at a place by campus. At the time, I remember having a project I'd procrastinated on that was due Monday, so I told him that. We still chatted for a while, and then he invited me to a Halloween party. Well, everyone I knew had plans and no one wanted to go with me, and I didn't want to go without a friend in case I drank, so I didn't go. Instead, I hung out with a friend at another party. After that, he didn't talk to me anymore, and at the time, I had no idea why. And I didn't make an effort to talk to him, so that was that. He was a really nice guy and I liked him, but I can see how it looked as though I wasn't into him from his perspective. After figuring out he was into me too and I was an idiot, I changed and started making moves on guys I liked. Or just made it clear I was into them. Wherever you are, guy from English 101, I hope you found a wonderful lady who wasn't clueless. Dog, that is a big fumble. Oh, I feel for you. Story 4. Didn't quite say no, but I had my first serious relationship with a sweet boy I met in nerd camp in high school. We dated through college and were together for 5 years before he graduated and moved across the country. We tried the distance thing for a year while we were apart, but his job made him extraordinarily busy and it was difficult. Guess this is where I screw up. I was getting a lot of attention back in college and started to get curious what it'd be like to date someone else. He was the only serious relationship I'd ever had. I used the excuse that distance wasn't working and I didn't know if I wanted to end up where he was. I caught him by surprise and we split. I tried to fix things a few weeks later, but I thought I was making the right decision. I later found out from mutual friends that he found out the real reason and took it really hard. Fast forward 3 years, my excuse turns out to be stupid since I moved to the same city immediately after college, since my ex-BF had helped me find the best opportunity I had before we split, which of course was in his town. I've missed him for the past quarter to 3 years. He was the perfect man and I completely messed up and ruined it. We still catch up every few months and I still can't get over him. But after what I put him through, I understand why he's not willing to get back together with me. But it's so tempting, especially since he hasn't had a serious relationship since. Story 5. I'm late, but this is my one regret of my school life. So, meh. We were in gym in 8th grade, walking or running on the track outside. I was walking slowly, and a group of 5 guys were walking behind me. They were whispering or snickering behind me, but I wasn't paying them any attention. One of the louder guys, who I also never got on well with, calls out to me, "Hey, would you go out with Hispanic?" Their nickname for the guy in question? Don't ask. I was completely taken aback, especially since I'd never been asked out before. In a knee-jerk reaction, I looked the potential dater in the eye and said with finality, "No." He looked immediately crushed, to which I felt guilty for, but rationalized that if he worked up the courage to ask me himself, I'd say yes. His friend cackled and the one guy called out to me said, "He totally wants you," followed by several more lewd and rude comments before I glared at them and jogged away. The guy was really withdrawn and had barely any contact with him. A week later, he changed schools and I never saw him again. He was a nice, friendly guy who I totally crushed at that age, which can be scarring. I was never asked out again in high school, probably because I got a reputation for being mean, intimidating, or my preference. And now as an adult, I have almost zero dating experience. A lot of my life would have been different now if I just said yes or even sought him out later. On the very far off chance that Nick or anyone who knows him hears this, I'm sorry and I hope any girls you met later in life were much kinder than I was. Don't regret it, just use it as a lesson on what you want or don't want in a partner, and to always follow your instincts and be true to your heart. That's a pretty important lesson. And since you're already here, do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel so you wouldn't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. Story 6. Right after high school, a guy I used to flirt with asked me out. Before he asked me out, we would always talk and text. I remember him mentioning how he wanted 4 kids. But before he asked me out, I was already talking to someone, an older guy. He had no job, divorced, 2 kids, no car, and lived at home. The high school guy I knew was talking to the older guy, but since I wasn't committed yet, he figured he'd ask. I told him no, because I remembered that he wanted 4 kids and intimacy to last forever, such stupid reasons to not date anyone. I chose the other guy instead. We reconnected after he returned home from deployment 3 years later. I was single and as was he. We got intimate, hung out a lot and just enjoyed each other. He'd just gone out of a long-term relationship, so when I brought up dating him, he said no. Fast forward to now. We still talk here and there. He's stationed a state away and every single day I think about him. I regret everything. I regret choosing my ex over him. I hate myself for doing that. I think he was the one, too. Story 7. Yes, back in sophomore year of high school, there was a guy that I had a few classes with and had a huge crush on him. We had so much in common and always had a good time in each other's company. The only problem was my best friend had a crush on him, too, but she didn't know that I liked him. She was always talking about him and envisioning scenarios where they ended up together, and even asked me to ask him if he liked her. Yes, very elementary school, but I did it. He said no, so I broke the news to her gently. Made something up about him saying he didn't know her well enough since they'd had no classes together. A couple weeks later, I was sitting in the school courtyard with another friend. That guy came up to me and asked me out. I was jumping for joy on the inside, but on the outside, I played it cool and said that I only think of him as a friend. I decided I couldn't hurt my best friend like that. I couldn't go out with a guy she was obsessed with, even if it meant I would be giving up a chance with him. It would have totally broken her heart. And to this day, almost 12 years later, she doesn't know about him asking me out. It's crazy because every now and then this guy pops up in random dreams of mine, and I wake up with a smile on my face and wonder what could have been. But even though I have those thoughts, overall I think I made the best decision. Okay, that kind of makes me feel better about the times I got friend-zoned. Story 8. This one time I said yes to this really sweet guy that I'd been friends with for some time. I really liked him and I could tell he really liked me too. However, young me had just broken up with my first ever boyfriend that I had been with for 2 years. My lying, cheating piece of a crap ex-boyfriend kept coming around and I wasn't sure I was 100% over him. Didn't feel like it was fair to the new guy, so I broke it off. He was deaf, and even though he had hearing aids, he mostly read lips. So because I didn't think I could actually look him in the eyes when I told him, I wrote him a letter. I watched him read it, and he just got up and walked out of my house with tears in his eyes. I never saw him again. I've regretted it ever since, and this was over 10 years ago. Seriously, one of the biggest regrets of my life was breaking things off with him. But even bigger was never being able to tell him how much I regret it. If you're out there somewhere, I hope you find a girl that's good to you, and hope your life is amazing. I screwed up, Gilbert. I'm sorry. Story 9. Actually a guy here, but I have a story. There was this adorable punker girl I knew in high school, around 1999. I'd slowly gotten to know her, and I remember one night we were hanging at a party talking about music. She actually seemed a little into me, and I ended up getting her number. I started talking to her a little, but mainly messaging online. I made 3 separate dates with her, and she would flake every single time at the last second. Eventually, I just stopped trying. Sometime later, she'd actually started seeing a friend of mine. One night I had a party at my house and I was outside with her having a cigarette, and she started talking about the time I was talking to her at the party and how much she wanted me, blah blah blah. Then she said, I wanted to go out with you so much. When you started talking about Goldfinger, I had trouble controlling myself. Why did you never take me out? I was stunned and informed her that she flaked on me 3 times. She responded, well, if you ever ask me again, I promise I won't. Even though she was dating my best friend. I wasn't exactly going to backstab my friend, even though I was horribly infatuated with her. This is one of many instances that completely messed me up for asking girls out. High school girls are confusing. Probably a year later, at age 17, she got into a car accident and passed away. 14 years later, I still think about her all the time. Story 10. I was in 8th grade and out roller skating with my mother and my best friend. Couple skate came on. The 3 of us went to go sit down. A cute boy asked me to skate with him. If I remember correctly, he said he thought I was pretty, and if I would like to skate with him. It was really polite. I'd never really had anyone ask me out or compliment me. I was completely caught off guard. I always thought my best friend was much more attractive than me, and was confused why he didn't ask her. Flustered, embarrassed for no reason, scared that we would have to hold hands and terrified that I'd fall down, so I said no. My mother asked me why I said no after he skated away, and I just sort of shrugged. I really regret it, and felt really bad afterwards. Must have taken a lot of courage to come up to some random person, sitting with her mother and another girl, and ask for a couple skate, and I was too afraid to say yes. I still think about it a lot for no reason, 18 years later. Story 11. Yes, to a boy in high school. I knew he liked me, but I wasn't into him and didn't think we would be a good match at all. He wasn't a bad person at all, just not someone I had found very interesting the few times we talked. So when he called and asked me out, I said no thank you as politely as I knew how. I pretty much tried to avoid him for a while after that because I didn't want to have to turn him down again. Yet now I wish that I'd gone out with him just once and given it a shot. Like, what would it hurt? It took him a lot of courage to pick up the phone that day and call me. That has to count for something. And I was already a social pariah and the guy I had been crushing on didn't even know I was alive. So it's not like I had a reputation to protect or other suitors knocking on my door. One round of mini golf wouldn't have made a difference in the grand scheme of things. And if it didn't work out after that, well then at least I could make a decision based on actual data. Perhaps it would have helped him as well, since he could have moved on to someone else instead of holding out hope that I'd give him a chance, which he did for another year or so. Story 12. In high school, I was friends with a guy named Alex. He was sweet and smart, and I genuinely cared a lot about him. He was always quiet and didn't talk much, but I always tried to include him in things because he was such a great guy, but just a little shy. I also had a boyfriend at the time who was completely obsessive over me. If I tried to break up with him, he would just follow me everywhere I went and constantly beg me to come back to him. But one time I had broken up with him and stayed apart for a while. During that time, Alex became my study partner and we met at the library to do projects together. He even brought his Xbox one day for me to borrow for over a week. That's when you know a guy really likes you. Well, one evening we were talking on MSN Messenger, old school, and he started sending me hearts, hugs, and kisses. This was the first time that he had remotely expressed his feelings for me. I thought about it the entire weekend and decided that if we dated, we would eventually break up and then our friendship would be ruined. So I chose to get back with my obsessive ex instead. When we went back to school and he saw that we were back together, it obviously ruined our friendship anyway. I know it sounds stupid, but in my teenage mind I was doing it because I actually liked him so much that I was afraid of losing him. Weeks later, I realized how stupid that was. I regretted it, but I felt like it was already too late, so I didn't even try. Then, years later, I realized how stupid I was to not try. By that time, I was newly married and he was in Afghanistan. I did talk to him a few times as friends, and I even sent him a birthday card to Afghanistan. But sometimes, I wonder if things would have been different, or if we would have just broken up and stopped being friends like I originally thought. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.